So today there was a hearing in the United States Senate Judiciary Committee, and they were talking about red flag laws. And the chairman of that committee would be the Republican Lindsey Graham. And by the way, right out of the gate here, he supports the red flag laws, and he's one of the co-sponsors of the bill. So let's just get that out of the way. And there's a lot to the hearing, and there's a lot to this topic, but today I'm just going to focus on what happened during their opening statements by, first of all, Senator Graham, and second of all, by the ranking member, which is Senator Feinstein. So I took a few notes here, guys. And basically, Graham walks into the meeting late because they don't really have to follow, order in their lives how we do, but whatever. He walks in late, and he starts off by reminding people that, they're trying to identify people with extreme behavior in communities. And then he says, but there will be robust due process. Okay? And then he quickly reminds us, hey, look, Trump called on all states to develop extreme risk protection orders, because that's what they call red flag laws, and will offer assistance. So, real quick, if I could digress. So yesterday, bump stocks were officially banned, unless you're one of the people that has a stay, and I discussed that thoroughly yesterday. So besides those people, bump stocks have been banned. Trump called for those. And then if you guys remember a while back in a meeting, Trump said, yeah, act quick, take the guns first, due process later. Well, this is where this all started from. And look, guys, I'm not calling Trump out any more than I have to, but it is what it is. This is the second major thing Trump's called for. And Graham reminded us of that. He said, Trump called on all states to develop ERPO and will offer assistance. So there you go. So he goes on to say, he says, people are wondering if we are going to take your guns, Lindsey Graham said. And he said, the answer is no. And then immediately says, but. And you know what happens when there's a but, right? So the answer is no, but there will be a process where someone in your neighborhood or across town can petition a court that someone is about to blow. Now look, there's a couple things goofy about that. First of all, they started off by framing these red flag laws saying, look, this will just be someone who's intimate with you, cohabits with you, someone that you know very well. Well, now Lindsey Graham is blatantly saying in this open hearing, this could be someone in the neighborhood or even across town. So it sounds like we already knew. He's finally starting to admit to a little bit that it's basically everyone. Anyone can red flag you. That's basically what's going on here, right? So, anyways... And then he, of course, gives this extreme instance where someone's about to blow. Look, guys, if someone's about to blow, we've already had laws on the books for many, many years. If someone's in the middle of blowing up or is, quote, about to blow, you can already call the police and they'll handle that incident, whether it's public or whether it's domestic. We already have laws for that. So the whole, oh, someone's about to blow, we need to red flag them. No, there's already laws for that. So I would disagree with Senator Graham on that part of it, too. And then he goes on to basically say that, he said, I'm a big fan of the Second Amendment. I own guns. Well, yeah, of course. That's the predicating clause. Now we're supposed to believe everything he says, right? So he's a big fan of the Second Amendment. He owns guns. But he says, but I try to be responsible in my ownership. And then he says, but at the same time, he said, every right has its limits. And this is exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about limiting our Second Amendment rights. And he starts off with his predicating clause saying, look, I own guns. I'm a big fan of the Second Amendment. But at the same time, every right has its limits. So there you go. He's telling you again, right then and there, he wants to limit your Second Amendment rights. Now, how far does he want to limit it? Probably as much as he can, if you want my opinion. But he's admitting to, right now, some pretty big limits he wants to put on there. So, then he goes on to basically say, look, a big part of the reason he did this meeting was for Senator Blumenthal. If you guys know who he is from Connecticut, this guy's like one of the most rabidly anti-gun people there are. He wants all guns gone if he has his say. He's basically another Feinstein. Lied about what his exact service was when he was a vet, lied about going to Vietnam, all these things. This is the guy we're talking about, Senator Blumenthal. So Lindsey Graham's admittingly right there saying he's in with Blumenthal on this. That's great, right? And then he basically goes on to say how, you know, he's just trying to start a discussion on the benefits of this law. And then he cites Parkland and how the FBI was alerted and did nothing. Well, here's what I'm curious about. He says the fact that the FBI, which is law enforcement, I would say premier law enforcement, they were alerted about this character in Parkland, and they did nothing. It's well established they did nothing. And he's saying that, well, the fact that we already had a law enforcement in place, and this guy was ready to blow, and he said that he wanted to be a school shooter on film, Graham mentions that whole thing, you know, that meant that all of a sudden now we need another law? There were already plenty of laws in place that the FBI could have acted on to watch this kid and make sure he didn't do this terrible thing that he did in Parkland. But no, the laws didn't stop the kid then. So I don't know where Lindsey Graham's going with that. Basically, to me, he's like, oh, let's just make another law that infringes on the rights of good people because, as the old saying goes, and I truly believe it, right? Bad people don't follow laws, and good people don't need laws. So we're going to add another law, according to Lindsey Graham. This time it'll stop them if the FBI just has one more, you know, tool in their chest. Okay, so that's Lindsey Graham. He came off pretty much anti-gun, guys. I'm just calling a spade a spade. Then he introduces the ranking member, which is none other than Senator Feinstein. And of course, she's all over this, right? She thanks him very kindly for having the hearing. And then she goes right off the bat, just right out of the gate, she says, we need universal background checks. Well, first she says we need these, you know, red flag laws, but we also need universal background checks. We need registry. She says the assault weapons ban worked. And then she cites all these statistics, but you know how statistics are. You can pull them out of anywhere and make any argument you want. Like, you could argue with yourself or against yourself just by using different random statistics. So she does all that. But you know what sucks? Is of the witnesses that they wanted to call, they wanted John Lott to be one of the witnesses. And he's the master of, you know, statistics and gun statistics. And he wrote that book that said more laws, less crime. And if you read that, that basically shows you where the statistics really are. I would note he was not allowed to be one of the witnesses today. But I digress. So she goes on basically talking about how we've had extreme risk orders work in San Diego. And in the 1 year that San Diego's had these red flag laws, they've confiscated 318 guns, including 33 assault weapons. Now, Lindsey Graham just got done saying a few minutes earlier, we don't want to take your guns. We just want to make it where, you know, if someone's about to blow, that we can stop them. Well, Dianne Feinstein, she's not even afraid anymore. She just right off the rip says, San Diego's confiscated guns, and that's a good thing and it's worked. And then she goes on to say with assault weapons, she starts calling for the assault weapons ban again. She says, well, in Australia, after they had their shooting in 96 or whatever it was, they banned and created a licensing scheme. And then she says New Zealand's in the process of doing that too. And then she says, I hope that our Congress will find the courage to do what's right. So then she goes on and does the tactic they all do. She starts citing all these different school shootings and giving the names of the schools and all this and saying, you know, if we didn't learn from this one and we didn't learn from that one. So then she tries to evoke fear and play on people's emotions. So she played that card, of course. And then she says, well, these red flag laws, I support them, but they're just a small step in the right direction. And again, she's not even being like coy about this at all. She's literally just saying, you know, this is what I want. Yeah, I want what, you know, Senator Graham wants, but this is just a start. You know, registry, confiscation, assault weapons ban. We want to be like Australia. We want to be like New Zealand. Look at how great the city of San Diego's been at confiscating guns. And here's the problem with this red flag law, guys. You guys need to get on the horn with your senators. We really need to fight this one. Because here's the problem. We just heard what Feinstein's going to do. And unfortunately, we just heard that the committee chairman himself, who is a Republican, I would note, and unfortunately a powerful Republican, being the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Mr. Graham, he fully supports these red flag laws. Not only does he support them, but he's one of the ones that originally authored the bill. And this is bad, guys, because this is so much different than just a ban, which of course bans are terrible too, but this is even worse, I think, because this is literally, as Mr. Graham himself said, let me go back to my notes, I don't want to misquote him. He said, trying to identify people with extreme behavior in communities. And then he goes on to say that it could be in your neighborhood or across town. So basically, anyone that doesn't like you and in their opinion feels you're of an extreme risk. Now look, there's a lot of people out there that hate guns so bad, and they demonize this tool, this piece of metal, so much that they think that you're an extreme risk for even wanting to own a gun. They think that you and I are nuts for even talking about gun rights. So they're basically trying to set up a law where anybody can flag you. And unfortunately, the president's not only going to support this, but the president's the one that asked them to get this done. The president's the one, again, that was quoted, take the guns first, due process later. And I would like to remind all of you guys, and remind the president and Senator Graham, that when you take something first and due process later, that's not how due process works. That's how it works in other countries that we consider to be horrible places to live. Places don't even hold a candle to this great country. That's what they do in other countries, is they say, you're guilty, you're in jail. You'll either bribe the judge appropriately in some countries, or you'll prove your innocence. That is not what the Bill of Rights is about. That's not what the Constitution's about. So, yes, none of us want school shootings, all that emotional stuff. I feel just as emotional as anyone about it when these happen. But, at the same time, there's always been laws in place in the past that could have stopped these things. The laws never stop bad people, and this law, I don't believe, will save one single life. In fact, as we know, there was already somebody in Maryland who was red flagged, and he was killed during the process of getting flagged for the removal, confiscation of his guns. So, just remember that. Taking something first and due process later is no due process, regardless of whether the Republican senator or the Republican president tells you so. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and you guys have a good one.